Okay, I think as I'm going to make a sound check here. People hearing me all the way in the back row? Yeah, all right, good. So I'm just going to give a brief primer here, just starting off with some early work just to kind of negotiate a starting point from, Jay mentioned the Harry Who, and with the new film that's been going around the country, that area of time has been relocated, and so I'm going to relocate a few of the pieces that I've done in that time period. And starting off with a couple paintings that encounter the aspect of the police, and so that was an interest of mine back in the early 60s, where I thought about that aspect of, and we're still going through that with police being both protagonist and lawmaker and lawbreaker, etc. And so I had a number of paintings that orchestrated around that topic, and a lot of times I would have them, which I don't have any images of that right now available, but the aspect of police in front of the 6 foot in front of the lineup kind of aspect there. And in these I had the aspect of some of my own personal garments. So like this piece here had I had a very exact same patterned kind of a sweater t-shirt kind of aspect here that this is engaging in, and I had a lot of collage material. The previous slide had the badges, which I wore as well, these kind of toy badges that you pick up at in the old days there, the Woolworths 5 and dime store. And then the hat that had the gamblers would wear these kind of plastic hats when they were doing the shark card games. And then I kind of would kind of take pop imagery, so versus somebody like an Andy Warhol who kind of replicated the aspect of stack cans in a grocery store, I took the Scotch tape dispenser, kind of spread it out, and brought that into a facial physiognomy that had to have two noses to accommodate this strategy of glass making. It was kind of inspired by a glass, I guess, store that had all these exotic frames with butterflies and things like that. It was Saul Mascot, and was placed in New York, I think lower Manhattan, somewhere. I don't remember the location, but this was, I titled this Son of Saul Mascot as possible frame gesture that this individual that had the store would run. I kind of followed that up with a connection to the total convict kind of personality, and that was replicated in the Dick Tracy cartoon that had a protagonist called Gargles that was like using gargle lotion or gargle tonic as like a prohibition type thing. He was kind of pushing his mixture and having various dispensers being liable to pick up his product. And they showed in the strip him gargling in this kind of way. He would be gargling and saying to his henchmen, go out there and get some people on board here. And so I kind of used that as an inspiration and the aspect of connecting up to a product. I did various pieces that would have this invented product that related to the image in some way, and this was gargoyle, kind of a gargoyle-esque kind of facial physiognomy, and then the gargle oil that kind of played in that word, and he had his little gargoyle jar there that was, and he also had this ascot that he always would wear, and he was very, very buffed up. I moved up in later in the 70s. I started doing these segmented figures that were reaching kind of 7 foot tall proportions, and that because they were kind of attached with grommets, the individual units of the body and the legs, and they came apart, and so like a lower leg would be not too large, but as you kind of added on to it, it did get the 7 foot dimensions. And so it was I was able to, with these brass fasteners, kind of get that kind of feeling of the skeletons that I would see as a kid that was in windows, and they had that kind of manipulable kind of situation that you could kind of manipulate these figures and skeleton figures and put them, hang them in your windows. And they were done in a kind of on a cheap chipboard material that had a gray tonality to it. And I used the crayon that had a transparency that would kind of pick up that gray undertone. Like I would kind of buff off the crayon material. I first applied the India ink, very heavy saturated India ink black, and then applied the Crayola pigmentation, and then took a tissue or a paper towel and kind of rubbed that off to get a nice a backward connection to the gray material. Kind of as a homage to the Byzantine exhibition going on now, and maybe the Ensor as well. Bringing this in as my take on the iconography of the Christian church here, and kind of employing that duality of Christ both being crucified on this particular kind of kite that you could also purchase at that same Woolworth store that had the kind of cross configuration on the back to brace the paper, and then the idea of the kite being ascending, so you had both the ascension and the crucifixion in this one context of. And I also kind of brought in the play of the shoes that were usually found on the corner. They had a guy would be selling these balloons that had these paper cutout feet, and then they had the little hole that you'd pull that tied up balloon in, and that kind of addressed the idea of the stake going into the feet to attach him to the cross. Kind of connecting up to that blow-up kind of situation here. You got the maybe predecessor of Arnold Schwarzenegger that pumping up himself in effect, and got the tire pump going full time, and he's got the gleaming, glistening aspect of his reflective, transparent composition there. And then I also kind of addressed the other kind of powerful figures. Again, Jay mentioned the comic book influence in here. This is my take on Batman, so kind of going with the iconic graphic aspect of a iconic superhero, Batman, and his kind of radiating power that kind of would kind of emanate from his persona, and kind of connecting up to that aspect of a little bit of a two-dimensional take on dimensionality. So if you had a more of a Dali-esque kind of approach, you'd have more of a realistic approach to him kind of navigating out at you. And so I'm just kind of addressing that via the small leg formation in the lower portion of his body. And going with that aspect of both the blow-up and the elevation component of both the Christ figure and the Batman figure, I kind of had a really strong attraction to the Macys, early period of Macys parades, when they had this one puppeteer, a very famous puppeteer whose name at this point escapes me. I should have done a little research to get the exact name on him. But he would design these fantastic blow-up balloons, and there's parade onward to down the past Macys and down the street there. And so this was a connection up to that. It was an opportunity for me to get away from that strict symmetricality that the Batman figure would be a representation of, and kind of have that same symmetricality, but then put it on a tilt in terms of getting that aspect of the balloons kind of navigating back and forth in the wind. And people who have done that, volunteers who have tried to hold these strings together in a very windy day in Chicago, particularly, also their own kind of version of that parade, have had some problems with that. And it does take a certain kind of talent and strength to negotiate that kind of puppetry from the bottom up rather than the elevation there. I also did a couple of these figures that had the neon kind of component, back to the neon lighted situation and kind of that glowing line. And this one, these two, I kind of have a tendency to work in series of things. Sometimes I don't realize the whole series in effect, but I do a number of drawings preceding a painting or a series of paintings. And so it's not just one image going from a thumbnail sketch to a finished product, but a number of very involved drawings that I might have a couple of later on down the road here that would give you that flavor. And this kind of navigates again on the kind of a lot of times I don't have any kind of titles or verbal component that kind of addresses the visual. But in this case, I did have the thing in mind, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. And so the kind of back has a number of stylized scratches that are incorporated on the back of the figure. And then kind of moving into a more present, current time period here, one of the aspects that you'll see a series of pieces that kind of think about that term, the idea of cantilevering in architecture, where you have that extended kind of a phenomenon off a basic structure. A lot of times it does appear in some of these 1950s gas station kind of aspects. And so here you have the cantilevering neck, kind of negotiating on a kind of a rooftop, one of these flat rooftops that it's a kind of new form of cindering. They have now a lot of the reflective component, of course, the green technology that is kind of incorporating some of the dynamics of the sun. But in this case, it's maybe on the red planet in a sense, this idea of a flat surface of roof with these various kind of configurations there that address some kind of a signal, taking in signals, and so you have that cantilevered neck kind of negotiating that. Then I also, again, this cantilevered body there, and it's kind of a take on this kind of banana peel that this woman is dropping that is kind of elevating, or not elevating, but descending onto the sidewalk, and she is in the process maybe of slipping on another banana peel, and she's trying to do a return compliment to that banana peel that somebody else has discarded. Also, the idea of bottle in a message in a bottle kind of thing. And so this woman has the old email component there and the snail mail kind of aspect kind of spinning out into the netherworld in this yellow atmospheric condition. And then you have the bottle that hasn't been, is open cork there that is getting ready to be installing this envelope, and so you have that kind of combination. And it has the kind of the string phenomena like these old tops that you can kind of take the string, wrap it around the top, and then throw it out, and then you get the kind of spinning configuration. So this is more of that kind of notion there of an indication of movement, and the kind of aspect of string, and the idea of maybe throwing out an envelope out there and then pulling it back in and retracting. So like you would send an email out and check it out first before you send it. And this has another, the idea of dropping a handkerchief kind of idea here. So it's another kind of a continuum here of a kind of theme of women dropping various aspects of things. This kind of dropping the hanky to kind of engage a gentleman to pick it up and have an encounter in some fashion or another. It's kind of a little bit of a take on this one photograph I saw that was taken in the 1930s, so that during the Depression, and you had this woman with these silk stockings or nylons that decompose very readily, and so her stockings has this kind of perforation there that weren't intended. It was kind of a contained nylon stocking that has all these kind of porous situations. And the slide itself does not give, there's a little bit more of a violet tonality that kind of accentuates the glistening component of the nylon, and that's kind of a little bit lost. It kind of turns into an orange color for some reason, and so it's not quite accurate color-wise. This is a piece here that kind of connects up to the idea, again, of the top, maybe the skirt here has that aspect of being able to be wrapped around and then spun off like again, analogous to a top that is wound by a string, and then you can kind of pull these strings, and she can do the little twist back from her gyration period, but it's more like a curtsy position she's navigating here with this snake dress component. And then kind of back again to the comic book phase here with the balloons here that have this more of a non-message message. So it doesn't have the verbal component, more a symbolic component that may kind of address more of the hairdo, a connection back to the hairdo and talking about the way her hair is shaped. So it's talking about herself in a way. And then I got a couple of slides here that kind of bring to prominence the aspect of the mouth, in effect. So this is like a monkey making a monkey face, and you have the hands jammed in to kind of stretch the mouth in some contorted manner and make some sort of face. And so I have one of the strategies here was to have a kind of framing device that is within the rectangular configuration there. So you have that kind of brownish line that kind of encases the figure more, and but it stays with that same lime green component there, and then has a frame that also is painted, I think, a blue, that is a secondary kind of framing device, but more thinly executed. And then the aspect of where you have in the upper stratosphere of the torso, the arms and the face have a lot of detail and a lot of color separation, etc. And then that stomach area with the little navel component kind of rotating around that edge there. Kind of, I'm thinking of more like a pinball ball that is kind of navigating on that course around the edge of the stomach area. And so that's very open, and then there's a little bit more complexity in the leg area, and then that tail that is emanating out of the hindquarters there. And so this is another take on the mouth formation there. In this case, this was a piece that started with a number of drawings, as I said, all the work as a premise of a lot of drawing material. And this one initially was a print situation that had a connection again to some kind of a verbal component of a bump on the log, and it replicates a bump on the log and a fly on the wall. So I had both in the print, which I should have probably included for a little more information, but that was somebody sitting on a log figuration, and then you had a fly that was also out there. So it was like a frog mouth in a way that would be kind of getting ready to spring up and gobble up that fly or whatever would be on the wall. In this case, I had that same kind of setup of the no-arm figuration, the very short body with the large head, and the large mouth area that has kind of a pelican-like containing device, or almost like a toilet component there, and then getting ready to accept a cannonball. So you have a different aspect there where maybe the victim and maybe it has kind of there's some sort of a aspect of swallowing up a cannonball might be of a different digestive order than just taking in a fly. Continuing on with the kind of mouth-like aspect and the taking in of food, I had a thought just in terms of the idea of Oliver Twist, and just in terms of connecting Oliver Twist to, as we engaged him in that classic novel of Charles Dickens as a young person, an orphan, etc. I, being of an orphan descent, had a connection to him as a young kid, and as I achieving the ancient age of time has advanced on me, that I was kind of trying to imagine what Oliver Twist would be like. And so I kind of thought of this as a portrait of Oliver Twist with a kind of one of these cream wafers that have that kind of segmented aspect. And it has a little bit of corner of the cob kind of quality. So I saw that as little strands of hair kind of leaking down, and the kind of last remnants of hair follicles. And I thought of that mush where you had to engage in swallowing this mush, spoonful of mush. And so you got the spoonful of mush on the, or oatmeal, which I participate in an occasional breakfast, and that's coming in from the left, and then you have this this spoon again with the emanation of some kind of thank you for that spoonful of mush, and appreciate it, give me another one. This is a little fuzzy here, so it's a little bit like a sand dune thing. One of the influences for me, living here in the Midwest and having access to Sleeping Bear Park and the sand dunes real close by, the kind of shifting sands, and thinking about the far-off regions of Arabia and with those kind of sand-like components. As a form, that kind of non-static kind of aspect, the fact of not being able to trap that formation, but it, if you can kind of trap it, and how you kind of represent that aspect of sand and the kind of quality of sky formation and the kind of engagement of that, the forms that appear in the sky and the forms in the sand, and then people navigating within that. And this is a little bit more like not quite people here, but kind of a combination, characters kind of moving on different sand levels, and kind of like not horses passing in the night, but kind of creatures passing in the night. Again, another one of my sand pieces, so to speak. There was a friend of mine that used to hang out at Oak Street Beach, and he would be out all night and sleep on the beach not the rest of the evening, and then kind of wake up and just kind of crawl around the sand. And so I kind of wanted to do a portrait in remembrance of him. And so this is my take on him kind of crawling through the Oak Street sand with maybe a lone dog that had kind of a stray dog that had kind of was looking for some water or some place to unload his water in absorption. And then there's a little seashell that the person, Jerry, used to call him, his name was Jerry, but we had a name for him, and that, as well as the name of the puppeteer, Macys creator, is gone as well. So this is another series that I was thinking about in this kind of desert format, and the idea of the oil fields being burned in the background in this kind of night-like scene. And it turned into more a kind of relationship to a Winslow Homer piece, where they have the kind of abandoned ship, not shipwreck, but just kind of a ship no longer able to negotiate the sea, and you have the sharks going around it. And the fellow seems very calm and relaxed and kind of accepting of the circumstance here, almost like he's out there just relaxing and having a pleasant time on the rocky beach there. And so this was kind of approximating that idea of somebody out there in the desert and lost, and there's no way out, and there's this little empty glass that's by his tilt and kind of looking for the last drop in that little glass, and kind of with this more relaxed kind of accepting situation there, and these various rock formations going around him. And so I had the idea that first one was a drawing, and then the night scene with the fire, and I kind of changed up the fire with more volcanic kind of material in this orchestration, and then you having I think a bag of peanuts and maybe a coffee and something else. I can't remember what the other thing is, but so there's some nutritional aspect available to him, but not a heck of a lot. So, and then kind of just a kind of a female figure with, there's a lot of these aspects of what interests me a lot is some of these crashes and things where you get these fragments of a car crash, or some of these, with all the conflict going on, the kind of parts of buildings, or a glass kind of shattering, that sort of thing. So this is kind of just a charred, it's almost like that aspect there without the kind of line quality that might give a identity to it. So it has some connection to possibly a glass fragment or a metal fragment, so it's a little bit more ambiguous, but I kind of think of it more as some sort of chard that has been found. And the hand element, there's a Picasso, again, which I probably should have brought an image to connect it up. The only one I did was the Winslow Homer. But that Picasso did, it might have been, I'm not sure, one of his mistresses that has, really intrigues me because he has almost this cattail kind of aspect to the hands, and I think it was done in the 1930s. And so I have, from time to time, used that kind of same kind of stylization with no hand kind of aspect and relating more to a tail-like aspect. And so the right hand is just kind of connected up to the arm in more of this pointed tail component. I've done a number of flying, these are cutouts here that you'll be coming upon from time to time. And they kind of give me a place in between my three-dimensional work and my two-dimensional work. And it has a little bit more of that feeling of being able to navigate the environment, engaging the viewer more in an environmental presence than a rectangular canvas or a circular canvas. And I'm able to orchestrate different positions with the figures. And one aspect that I've kind of, a theme that I've used from time to time is this flying figure aspect there. So I've had divers that are manipulated in this kind of prone position kind of aspect. And so various different kinds of things. I have a thing on the drawing board which I haven't got presented here for you, but that's like one of these cannonball shots in the circus. You get these people that get shot out of a cannon. So I'm going to have that is on the forward production line kind of thing. And this is one I was thinking of a number of ideas of flying over the rainbow here. So this underwear, some underwear over the rainbow, I think someone's going to play on the Judy Garland thing. And this is a little take on the aspect of not the three little pigs, but the idea of the piggy. Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for my good, friendly companion. Gave me a little tip here. I remember that there's a blues singer that always would forget his lyrics, and his wife would be always giving him the feedback there, and he'd be able to get through the song. So this is the three little piggies go to market, and so there's kind of a switch on that, and thinking about knuckle sandwich and that sort of thing. And so he's coming home and supplying that for his family. This is a little bit of a take on kind of self-examination, maybe the idea of Hamlet looking at the skull and that sort of thing. And so it's a little bit of that aspect. And I kind of see that Chris Ware is in the audience, and I'm kind of reminded of Jimmy Corrigan here a little bit. That kind of face has a kind of an aged Jimmy Corrigan in a way. Correct me if I'm wrong. Robotic figuration has also been a very strong component of my work through the years. And this one has that aspect of combining the robotic, the more technological kind of aspect of things with the natural world, and this idea of both the kind of butterfly net component and that idea of a wind tunnel or a sound tunnel for aviation kind of purposes combined. And that was another cutout. And this one, speaking of cutouts, the aspect of some kind of component of taking out some kind of aspect of the body that is kind of getting in the way of things, and the kind of some sort of aspect of maybe rather than red eye, you got orange eye here, and they're going to slice that up with that little knife, slice that out. Oops, went through. Did I? All right, I guess, yeah, all right, I think we're in sequence. Another aspect, too, is the kind of, not necessarily of this Earth or this planet, but kind of dealing with figuration that is more alien-based. And another aspect here of connecting up to the aspect of extracting or pulling away, dealing with more of an earthen component. You can kind of think of that aspect of the woman peeling off the flesh there, and it could be related up to peeling a sunburn or the idea of a taffy pull kind of component there. So I was kind of thinking of that aspect and kind of bringing in the dynamic of two related species, but also having a very different aspect to them, and with some component of the separation of the diversity within a kind of species in the alien world here. This is another alien aspect and a little bit of the dripping component as well. So it might be like, rather than a drippy nose on this alien planet, you might have a dripping fingernail. This is a little bit back to the voice balloons in cartoon imagery that does include voice. And this is a little bit like where you have a woman that is, there's something, maybe a tobacco piece stuck on her tongue. This has that same kind of gestural component, but it is a little bit more related to the idea of a balloon, a voice balloon. And as I was mentioning, if you got the letter that you send out and pull it back on the string in that previous painting, that in this case you have something you have said and you want to kind of retract that. So she wants to push this voice balloon back into her voice box. This a little bit has to do with the component of the Cinderella, kind of looking for the shoes and all that sort of thing, kind of reverse Cinderella component there. And she's found her mate here, and then kind of the voice balloon here, it kind of connects up to the orange does calibrate a little bit more in the painting to the orange in the shoes. So she's kind of talking his language in her voice balloon. It's kind of another cantilever body here, and another one of these kind of extracting some kind of component of the interior into this small creature that is taking it like you might have your dog that picks up the table scraps kind of thing falling off the table. A similar kind of idea of boulder over the shoulder and somebody eating all these rocks that are descending down. More like meteorites, actually. Then I was kind of thinking about just the aspect of pool tables and tables. And so the green represents this kind of pool table color, and then the tables, kind of musical chair kind of idea, only musical tables kind of gyrating in the background. And then you have this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-legged table here that has the head that is ensconced on the top. And it has a little bit of thought, too, of the kind of aspect of some of the stocks where you kind of, back in the old Pilgrim days, where they kind of would put people in stocks, and also the idea of projecting your head from these kind of attaching devices so that the table can have that kind of confining aspect that those have as well. Kind of a series of women here. These are drawings that precede. It has this kind of running component there. The hair is stretched out, and this kind of flailing hands as they move left to right, whatever orientation they're going out of the pictorial plane. And this kind of relates again to the comic kind of component. Al Cap, Sadie Hawkins' day, when the single women would run and the bachelors would try to catch them. And is it the opposite? Thank you very much. All right. Again, the opposite. Yeah. So you had the Sadie Hawkins personas, the women in the community running after. In this case, give me the name of the person that she's. No. The song "Leaving in the Dust." What? I'm gonna stump her on this one. Yeah, Call Me Speedo. She's after Call Me Speedo. Call me Mr. Earl, right? And they call me Speedo, but my real name is Mr. Earl. So that's who's leaving her in the dust. This is me in a printmaking studio, I think in Kansas City. And that one cutout image I was talking, or it wasn't a cutout, it was a painting on a panel of the frog-like creature sitting on a log. This you can kind of see in that, to the left of my left hand, you can see that print, not in very good detail, obviously. But so I'm going to follow that with a couple more fuzzy kind of images of lithographic pieces here, and the aspect of changing up. You got to start with a premise of one figuration, and then you can kind of change it up. And so this is a heavy-duty kind of. This is a series of lithos when I was doing a little bit of a week, I think a week in Texas, in Austin, in their various print departments. So I did some lithos and some silk screens, and so this is a litho component, and so this is kind of a cowboy on his rodeo tour, and he got the cigarola in his mouth, and he's got the textural component of the smoke. And then I kind of brought it back to Chicago a little bit and related up. This is Christmas Cowboy, and so it relates up to snow that is covering up some of these outdoor lighting situations. So you have the lighted glass that has the kind of muted component of the light coming through the initially the snow, the recent snow. So that has that kind of low levels tinted quality there. And so this one also is a little bit fuzzy, kind of thinking about walking into a smoke-filled room or something. So you don't have as good an access to the imagery as you'd like. This is another print here. This is an etching that was done in Madison, Wisconsin, at the Andy Balkin Studios, and he had a situation that he showed me where I could do this moire patterns, where I take this kind of screen material, 2 screens like the summer screens that you get, and so 2 levels of screening, and you can kind of manipulate around. You get this moire pattern. So in the torso, there's that kind of moire pattern that exists. It's and it does have a kind of weird kind of dimensionality to it as well. So this is the subject matter here, another robot kind of employed in different activities. This is a little bit more like the windshield wiper guys that when you stop at the stoplight, they squirt some windshield wiper, and then they kind of wipe your windshields there, and you expect a little bit of rumination. And so this is, I did a series of these as well. And this is a series of, this is kind of in the future phase kind of thing, where I'm works that have not been realized, that this has to do with the idea initially. I see one of my former students in the audience where I told him about this this phenomena of people going up onto a cliff, kind of cliff climbers. They bring a ironing board up there and they iron a shirt, and then they get off the cliff and leave the ironing board there as a I guess something like they do when they go to the North Pole, or the early days of Perry, leaving the flag there or something, some indication that their presence had been there. So this is somebody that has, and it's kind of also, I'm thinking of the idea of a diving board as well, so kind of incorporating those 2 ideas a little bit. And so that this is one option, one drawing of that. There's a following that up with some auditions for these peaks that they would go off of, and you know, some of the ideas of climbers where they look at the ideal peak that they can kind of take on, and the challenge. I think there was one recently, something that's, I can't recall the location of that is either, but where they're navigating up a cliff at this time. But anyway, so there's these are some rock formations that will eventually have this kind of idea of the cliffhanger will be represented, the idea of cliffhanging, kind of tilting off the edge there. And so this is also another audition here of the various characters that will be coming off. It's a little bit like a straitjacket too, that on the upper left-hand top there corner, you can see a hand that I was kind of thinking about, maybe not having that kind of no hands kind of idea, not having the feeling of a straitjacket, but it's kind of the combination of a straitjacket and one of these vests that you wear when you go out kayaking or something to ensure that when you hit the rapids, you're okay. So once they, you know, there's also a connection up there to that idea of possible water, that they're elevating off these cliffs that have water underneath, and then they'll be in good shape if they have this vest on. This is another proposal here, and this will be cut out as well. And so you kind of get giving these here as an indication of the drawing process as a precursor of the painting aspect, whether it be the cliff hanger piece eventually that would have the cutout phenomena. This one would be as well. And so this is a little bit of the idea where we went to the Yellowstone Park, and Old Faithful is well documented, but there's so many other fantastic geysers and these kind of weird mineral components there that I've been carrying that along for a number of years since we went out there. And that's another kind of component in my work, that I don't just go from stage 1 to stage A, B, C, D and arrive at endpoint D or whatever, but I carry along with me a number of ideas that are ongoing, percolating, much like these underground steam components, and then kind of keep adding on, and through time it'll evolve into a more felt situation. So it's not the direct kind of immediate component, so it's more of an evolution, more Darwinian in a sense, or more related to, I remember early on hearing a story by Alfred Hitchcock, who had this idea of a partial aspect of a film that would have somebody running through a market and running through for an extended long take, and then eventually they would fall down and you'd see this knife in the back, and that appeared in a, so he had the idea and he didn't have the film that would be well incorporated until 7 years later. So I kind of think of that aspect of, although as I'm getting older here, I think that there's a little more of a finite aspect. I can't maybe wait that long, so I have to kind of accelerate the process a little bit, so I'm trying to do that. So this is another take on the kind of geyser thing. So it's kind of a similar thing, a similar body position, thinking in the sports realm where you have a baseball batter that will have a certain kind of stance, and so this is a certain body position, and each individual batter might have a similar stance, but they, because of their physiognomy or some other aspects, they kind of nuance it a little bit and bring a little different presentation to it, or if they're in different teams, they have a different uniform. So in this case, it'd be similar to that, different uniform. They have the 3 ears. Lori, my wife, didn't realize these were ears, so it was kind of another hairdo situation. But it's 3 rabbit ears kind of going out there and kind of listening for a geyser rather than viewing it like a little hissing of a pot getting ready to boil. So it's kind of analogous to somebody saying a watch bottle, what's it, watch kettle never boils? Watch, yeah. So you got to, anyways, it does come about, and so this is happening right before him, and he is watching it, and he's listening for it. And so again, it's analogous to the rock formations, so I'm kind of thinking of these different geyser formations here. Oop, gonna zip through that, okay. So this is, again, another representation of painting that's on the way and getting close to both the geysers and the, I still haven't got the quite rock, the cliffhanger kind of combo yet, or the idea of bringing in the ironing board yet. So I'm still working on that aspect. But this one is pretty close to resolve. The formation is close to resolve, and this is an initial phase of clapping, kind of multiple claps here. And it kind of emanated from a Burma Shave ad, the old signs that used to be on the road, and you'd get kind of a short, maybe 4 signs that would go through some kind of little lyric that would end up with by Burma Shaves. And it was one was something like Santa Claus does not get any applause, use Burma Shave. Men who look like Santa Claus don't get any applause, something like that, or claps or whatever. And I don't have the same lyric component that the Burma Shaves had. So this kind of started off with that, but I just kind of thought more of the idea of the multiple arms and the clapping component there. And so I've been working a little bit more on navigating a little bit more of a compositional strategy, working with different, you can see parts of the arm there is navigating a certain possibility for components within the flesh component with the glove component, etc. The idea of the clap being a certain formation. And this is another one too. Let me see if I got a couple of close-ups there of a clap. This slide too is a little bit out of focus there. And so you got the Clack Formation. And so I think with this, I'm also thinking again back to the old neon signage. And again, the coloration and the certain textural component in the flesh have not brought into play here. But the composition is solved. Another aspect here kind of brings into play a little bit. This is going back again to the early years where I did a number of black and white ink drawings. And it, in this case, it was more a roller skating Cyclops, kind of a theme through the years that has interested me, this kind of Cyclops facial component with an eye, embedded in the central area. And recently, maybe several years back, David Hockney had a quote, a disparaging quote about certain artists that were Cyclops in their visions and effects. So I kind of identified with that because I was kind of assuming it was away from his multifaceted English countryside pieces they had been doing at that time, and kind of a fascinating artist for me. But I just wanted to kind of bring a little bit more strength to the Cyclops kind of component, and so I've been doing, since that quote, re-energized the aspect of connecting up to the Cyclops kind of vision there, and kind of presenting it in a more iconic setting here. And this is kind of, it's a drawing, and I'm kind of thinking of doing 4 of them, like a quartet that would make, would connect up to the idea of 4 eyes, so 4 Cyclops Makeup. This is a painting after one of the drawings, and then there's, this was the next one up on the production line here. With this is painting the pink area in between underneath the armpits. There will be we'll fill in the white once I get to the painting aspect there. So it'll be on a pink background, the figure. And I still have a 4th to get handled there. A couple paintings here that relate up. It's another cutout, wood cutout panel that came same kind of floating on the wall. And so several pieces that relate up to the global warming and the different kind of phenomena of different weather, change of pace with weather formation. So this is kind of like the idea of not a polar bear skating, but that idea of the diminishing ice formation that's happening as well. All right, but it's kind of doing a little bit of a trick there of kind of one skate. Can't use 2 skates any longer. And this is a similar kind of thing, the when hell freezes over kind of idea, and he's got to go out there and do the shoveling. And there's still a little leftover flame component there on the snow. Whoop. Okay, and so this is another one of those. I kind of was thinking, I've been doing over the years here a number of kind of like with the Cyclops, that kind of take back to the Sphinx figure. Figuration's always been a very interesting, kind of like the Madonna or something, or the Mona Lisa, I should say, not the Madonna. But it's been a kind of an iconic figure that has really attracted my attention. So one of the things most recently that I've come up with is more of a smiling Sphinx component there, rather than the serious ignomanic figuration there. And so this is my take on it. You have the little babies coming in, like with the New Year's Day coming in. The new temperature components there is represented by the babies here, and the kind of working with the snowballs, and they have the pyramid snowball configuration there. And so that's another piece that I'm still working on. I haven't quite. I'm unsure of the scale of this. So that I want to maybe bring a little bit more of a dimensionality that would kind of give the more awesomeness of the Sphinx in a way. So kind of give more of a slant and more of looking up into it, and maybe diminish the children a little bit, the babies. And then a piece that is still in process. You're going to see that one tongue gives you a little bit idea that there's still some aspect within the tongue that I got some detail which appears in the tracing paper there, and it's kind of a gutter kind of aspect there. He's kind of sitting on one of these sidewalk islands, in effect, that you see in some locales, and kind of his tongue hanging out, and he's been maybe early morning race or something, and it's just kind of letting it just hang out in the gutter there, and perhaps some of the aspect of the overflow maybe of a gutter is kind of wetting his tongue a little bit more. And so there you can see set up my studio a little bit. You get to see the way I kind of position some of these these cutout pieces where I have to have several support kind of things to kind of bracket so it stays stable in effect. And you see one of the processes I do all these drawings, and you kind of see the scale of the drawing to the completed piece. And so I would, take an image of the drawing and then transport it into, I've tried to do the digital aspect, but it kind of fades out. So I just kind of use the opaque projector that you take a copy of the drawing, but you diminish it, and then you kind of put it in this little area, about a 5 foot by 7 area, and then put it into a projector that blows up, and then do a tracing of that, the contours, and then in series, I transfer the color areas and then come back in. You can kind of maybe see very, very loosely, there are some white chalk areas, Conte crayon areas that are in the purple. And then, I will kind of come back in with paint for the detail areas there. And then same with lay down that premise of the olive oil tongue, and then come in with some pebbling there to kind of project the texture of a tongue. And I think my tongue is hanging out a little bit, so I'm going to cut it short here and see if there's any questions.